Good evening, dear friends, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. Wherever you're listening from tonight, maybe tucked safely under the blankets, curled up in your favorite quiet corner of the house, or perhaps lying somewhere peaceful while the world slowly quiets down outside. I'm so happy you're here with me. Take a slow, gentle breath in. Let your shoulders soften and drop. Maybe pull the blanket or duvet up just a little higher. And allow the day to quietly drift away. The Arabian desert shimmered like a vast golden stage under the relentless sun. Elegant tents pitched at an oasis, where wealthy travellers played their roles in a caravan of luxury and intrigue. Then Sir Reginald Harrington was found dead in his silken bed, a vial of poison clutched in his rigid hand. The sands whispered of suicide, and amid the scent of jasmine and camel musk, police saw a man overwhelmed by desert isolation. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of mirages was playing a role. The role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The Arabian desert stretched like an endless golden stage, vast and merciless, under the blazing sun. At its heart lay the oasis of Al-Kharid, where luxurious tents rose like velvet curtains against the shimmering heat. Silk walls embroidered with golden threads caught the light of oil lamps, while the air carried the rich scent of Cuban cigar smoke, blending with hothouse roses arranged in crystal vases. The soft rustle of silk evening gowns mingled with the distant tinkling of a portable gramophone playing faint piano music, and the chill of approaching night air contrasted sharply with the warmth of a crackling fire pit. Then tragedy struck the perfect stage. Sir Reginald Harrington was found dead in his private tent, sprawled across silken sheets, a small vial of bitter poison still clutched in his rigid hand. The bitter taste lingered on his lips. The police called it suicide. A man broken by the desert's isolation, they said. But Hercule Poirot, arriving quietly in the late afternoon, saw something quite different. He saw a performance. The caravan's cast had already assembled, each player in position. Lady Eleanor Harrington, the widow, dabbed at dry eyes with a lace handkerchief, her silk gown whispering as she moved. Dr. Elias Thorne paced with professional concern, his rough tweed jacket brushing polished mahogany tables. Miss Sophia Lang and the secretary stood composed in soft kid gloves, while Colonel Marcus Black barked orders in a voice that echoed across the sand like a door closing softly. Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid offered calm condolences, his flowing robes scented with sandalwood. And Mrs. Vivian Croft sipped dry champagne, her laughter tinkling like a crystal chandelier, too light for grief. Observe, mon ami, this stage of sand and stars is no simple tragedy. It is a theatre, and every actor has already taken their mark. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, his green eyes gleaming as he surveyed the crime scene. Furniture wax gleamed on the wooden chest. Fresh lilies drooped slightly in the heat. A grandfather clock from Harrington's tent chimed softly, marking time in this timeless place. Rain, rare, miraculous rain, pattered lightly on the tent roof, adding an unexpected layer to the drama. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how Lady Harrington's shoulders shake appropriately, yet her handkerchief remains dry? No smudge of mascara, no true tears. The performance of grief is technically perfect, too perfect. Poirot began his director method on the grieving widow. The performance, she weeps, the sobs measured, the posture elegantly slumped, the lace handkerchief lifted just so. The tell, but the cloth stays pristine. The eyes are dry, the mascara does not run, grief performed, not felt. The psychology. I recall the case of Roger Ackroyd, where a man performed shock so convincingly that even I, Hercule Poirot, was almost deceived for a moment. He had rehearsed before mirrors. The widened eyes, the dropped jaw, the trembling lip. Yet he made one fatal error. He reached for his cigarette case with a hand too steady. A truly shocked man does not have steady hands. The body knows the truth even when the face lies. This is what the little grey cells understand, the psychology beneath the performance. The truth, therefore this woman knew of the death before it was announced. Her grief is costume, not emotion. You see it now, non? The theatre begins to reveal its secrets. The tension rose like heat from the dunes. Dr. Thorne examined the body again, his face a mask of detachment. Colonel Black insisted on swift burial, citing desert custom. Miss Lang offered strong continental coffee, its steam rising like stage smoke. The sheikh lit another cigar, its smoke curling upward to join the scent of expensive Chanel perfume that clung to Lady Harrington. You ask yourself, why does the colonel avoid looking at the sheikh's eyes? Consider the psychology. What role does this man need to play? Poirot arranged the suspects symmetrically around the fire, order and method his guiding star. Warm drawing-room comfort inside the main tent clashed with the cold terrace-like openness of the oasis beyond. Crisp linen napkins were passed. Icy champagne bubbled in smooth crystal glasses. The fire's warmth battled the chill night air that crept under the silk walls. This performance of unity, too neat, too rehearsed. Truth does not assemble so perfectly. Mrs. Croft laughed again, the sound brittle against the crackling flames. Miss Lang's fingers traced the leather binding of a notebook. Her calm, too, studied. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, observing every small gesture. On the mask slips. Did you notice how Thorne's hand steadied too quickly when he set down his glass? Sheikh al-Rashid spoke of desert hospitality, his words flowing like rehearsed lines. Yet, when Poirot gently asked about business dealings with the dead man, a flicker crossed his face, brief but unmistakable. Silk rustled as he shifted. Bravo! But the performance was not convincing to Hercule Poirot. The rain ceased, silence fell, broken only by distant camel bells tolling like a clock in the night. Colonel Black shared tales of past expeditions, his voice booming over the piano music that drifted from the gramophone. Lady Harrington sipped sweet liqueur, her composure cracking just enough for Poirot to note the relief beneath. We approach the first revelations. Have you identified the actor who plays their role too perfectly? Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands, drawing the cast's attention once more. The stage was lit by firelight and starlight. The players had taken their places. The curtain had risen. The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players. The morning sun rose over the oasis of Al-Kharid, turning the desert into a stage bathed in golden light. The luxurious tents stood like elegant backdrops, their silk walls rippling gently in the warm breeze. The scent of strong continental coffee drifted from silver pots, mingling with lingering sandalwood cologne and the faint wood smoke from last night's dying fire. Crisp linen napkins were laid across polished mahogany tables, and the soft clink of smooth crystal glasses echoed as servants moved quietly. The footsteps crunched on the sandy ground, mimicking the sound of parquet floors in a grand drawing room. Hercule Poirot, assembled the cast for the first formal interviews, each one a carefully staged scene in this desert theatre of deception. Lady Eleanor Harrington entered first. Her silk morning gown rustled softly as she sat, playing the role of the devastated widow with practiced elegance. She spoke in a low, trembling voice about her husband's final hours, dabbing at her eyes with the same lace handkerchief from the night before. Poirot watched closely. The tears never quite arrived. Her performance was measured, beautiful, almost flawless. Observe, mon ami. This player delivers her lines with perfect timing, yet something is missing. Where is the rawness? Where is the chaos of true grief? Dr. Elias Thorne followed. His rough tweed jacket brushed against the velvet cushions as he took his seat. He spoke in calm, professional tones, describing the poison as a rare desert extract, something Sir Reginald had apparently kept for personal reasons. He insisted it was self-administered. His hands rested steadily on the table, too steadily. The mask slips. Did you catch how quickly he looked away when I mentioned the exact time of death? Miss Sophia Lang came next, the devoted secretary. She folded her soft kid gloves neatly in her lap and answered in a quiet, composed voice. She had been working late, she said, sorting papers in the next tent. She heard nothing unusual. Her eyes remained clear and steady, but her fingers tightened briefly on the leather edge of her notebook. A small tell. A crack in the porcelain mask of innocence. A Colonel Marcus Black entered like a general inspecting troops. His voice boomed across the tent, recounting his movements with military precision. A cigar on the terrace, a brief conversation with the sheikh, then bed by 11. He barked that the whole affair was damned unfortunate, but clearly suicide. His jaw clenched when Poirot asked about the argument he'd had with Sir Reginald 2 days earlier. Loyalty performed, but resentment simmered beneath. Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid spoke last among the men. His flowing robes carried the rich scent of sandalwood and expensive cigar smoke. He offered condolences in smooth, cultured English, describing the caravan as a place of hospitality and trust. Yet when Poirot gently asked about the late-night meeting Sir Reginald had requested with him, the sheikh's smile froze for half a second. A missed cue. Mrs. Vivian Croft concluded the scenes. She arrived with a glass of dry champagne already in hand, her laughter light and tinkling like crystal in the chandelier above. She claimed she had retired early with a headache, heard nothing, saw nothing. Her velvet composure never wavered. But her eyes darted once, very briefly, toward Miss Lang. You watch carefully, no? You see how her gaze lingers just a fraction too long? Ask yourself, why does indifference suddenly need to look away? Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve, his little grey cells already cataloguing the contradictions. The sheikh had heard a soft door closing at midnight, but the colonel swore no one moved after 11. Miss Lang's story of fetching water for Sir Reginald clashed with Dr. Thorne's timeline of when the poison must have been taken. Mrs. Croft's headache excuse did not match the fresh glass of champagne she had been seen holding at 12:30. The interviews took place beneath the Art Deco elegance of the main tent. Leather seats creaked softly. Fresh hothouse lilies drooped in crystal vases, their scent mixing with the bitter edge of strong coffee. A grandfather clock, salvaged from Sir Reginald's tent, chimed the hour, its deep note rolling across the oasis like distant thunder. This cast performs unity and grief so smoothly, but truth does not rehearse. Truth stumbles, lies flow like well-learned lines. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, letting silence stretch. Lady Harrington described her husband's recent melancholy, her voice soft and mournful. Yet she never once mentioned the large inheritance she would receive. Dr. Thorne spoke of the poison again, insisting it could only have been self-administered. Yet he avoided explaining how Sir Reginald had come by such a rare substance. Miss Lang offered to show Poirot the late-night correspondence she had been sorting. Her hands trembled just once as she opened the leather folder. Colonel Black grew louder, insisting the matter be closed quickly for the sake of the ladies. The sheikh remained calm, but his cigar burned faster than usual. Consider the psychology, mon ami. When a man plays the role of protector, why does he become so eager to bury the evidence? Mrs. Croft laughed again, too brightly. She offered more champagne, as if this were a garden party and not a murder investigation. The fire crackled in the corner brazier, sending warm air against the chill that still clung to the shaded side of the tent. Rain from the night before had left small puddles that reflected the morning sun like scattered mirrors. The players had spoken. Each had delivered their opening monologue. Yet every performance carried a flaw, a hesitation, a glance that lasted too long or too short. Poirot arranged the coffee cups symmetrically on the table. Order and method, always. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. The players had entered the stage. But who among them was performing truth? And who was performing lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. The caravan moved slowly onward through the golden dunes, the desert sun turning every shadow into a long dramatic stroke across the sand. The oasis camp had been struck and repacked. Now the elegant tents swayed like moving scenery on a vast open stage. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the scent of expensive Worth perfume that clung to Mrs. Croft's silk scarf, mixed with the sharp musk of leather saddles and the faint sweetness of wilting hothouse roses carried in crystal travel vases. Footsteps thudded softly on packed sand. Camel bells tinkled in the distance like a crystal chandelier disturbed by wind, and the warm air pressed against the skin while occasional cool gusts from shaded hollows brought relief. Hercule Poirot walked among the players, his small form cutting a precise path through the theatrical procession. He probed deeper now, turning casual conversation into spotlit scenes. Colonel Marcus Black and Dr. Elias Thorne stood together near the lead camel, their voices rising in what appeared to be shared concern. Yet the performance cracked almost immediately, and the Colonel's barked assurances about quick resolution clashed with Thorne's careful medical phrases. Poirot watched the exchange like a director noting missed cues. Miss Sophia Lang walked several paces behind, avoiding Lady Harrington's gaze. Her soft kid gloves twisted once, nervously, before she forced them still. Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or carefully rehearsed theatre? A mask slipped in the late morning when Dr. Thorne, under gentle pressure, admitted that he had indeed prescribed a small quantity of the same desert toxin to Sir Reginald for chronic pain. He insisted it was harmless in proper doses. His hands remained steady as he spoke, but his eyes darted once toward the leather medical bag strapped to his saddle. Poirot adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision and made a mental note, and the fire from last night's camp still lingered in memory, its wood smoke scent faintly clinging to tweed and silk alike. Poirot applied his director method to Colonel Black. The performance. He stands tall, chest out, voice loud and commanding, playing the outraged loyal friend with every gesture. Hands chopping the air, jaw set, eyes fierce, the tell. Yet when alibis are questioned, his eyes flicker sideways. He reaches for his hip flask too casually, too smoothly. Confidence performed, fear underneath. The psychology. This reminds me strongly of the affair in The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. There, the village doctor performed innocence behind a shield of medical authority and calm reason. He rehearsed every reaction. The concerned frown, the steady voice, the helpful suggestions. Yet he made one fatal mistake. He never let his hands tremble. Not once. A truly innocent man in shock has unsteady fingers. A guilty man controls them because he has practiced. In that quiet English village, the mask of normalcy held until the little grey cells noticed the unnatural steadiness. The body betrays what the mind rehearses. Psychology teaches us genuine emotion disrupts rhythm, performed calm maintains it unnaturally. The truth, therefore, the Colonel knew more about the poison's placement than he admits. His outrage is scripted to divert attention. You see it now, no? The first real crack has appeared in the facade. The investigation pressed forward as the caravan paused at midday in a narrow wadi. A light rain, impossible, miraculous, began to fall again, pattering on tent canvas like polite applause. Mrs. Croft's tinkling laugh rang out once more, but this time it sounded thinner. Her story of a late-night walk to clear her head now clashed directly with Miss Lang's account of seeing no one near the waterskins after midnight. Crisp linen was used to dab at damp foreheads. The texture grounded the rising tension. The mask slips. Did you catch how quickly Thorne drew breath when the prescription was mentioned? Poirot gathered small pieces of evidence. A torn corner of paper found near the victim's tent. A faint sandalwood scent on a handkerchief that did not belong to the sheikh. A single camel hair on Colonel Black's cuff that did not match his own mount. Each fragment became a spotlight on another player. Reflection. In this theatre of mirages, where the desert sun exposes every gesture, we see how desperately humans cling to masks. Why do we perform? Because truth is dangerous, fear of judgment, a greed for inheritance, love twisted into possession, pride that cannot admit failure. These are the scripts society hands us, and we rehearse them until they feel like our own skin. In the Ackroyd case, the performer hid behind respectability and kindness, yet the psychology was simple. Masks grow heavy with time. They slip under steady patient light. All deception demands effort. Truth requires none. Lies are memorized. Truth is lived. To you who watches with Poirot, remember this. The most revealing moment is never the loud speech or the dramatic sob. It is the unrehearsed instant, the half-second pause, the hand that forgets its role, the breath that catches. There, and only there, does the actor become human again. Silk rustled as the cast gathered for a hurried midday meal. Fine wine was poured into smooth crystal glasses. Its dry taste lingered on tongues already dry from heat and nerve. Poirot asked quiet questions, each one a spotlight. A hidden letter, found tucked inside Miss Lang's travel desk, mentioned final arrangements in Sir Reginald's handwriting. She paled, but recovered quickly. Too quickly. The sheikh spoke of desert honour, yet his cigar burned down faster than usual. Colonel Black grew louder, insisting the matter was suicide. Lady Harrington remained silent, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The grandfather clock, now packed on a camel, chimed once more from its crate, a lonely, misplaced sound in the wilderness. The first act concluded, some masks had cracked, more would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. The caravan pressed deeper into the desert, the sun now a merciless spotlight overhead. Dunes rolled like waves of golden scenery, and their elegant tents had been struck and reloaded onto camels, leaving only the memory of silk walls and velvet curtains. The air carried the scent of furniture wax on polished wooden crates, mingled with the lingering smoke of Cuban cigars, and the faint, sweet perfume of wilting hothouse roses, packed carefully away. Rough tweed jackets brushed against silk cushions during the midday halt, while smooth crystal water flasks clinked softly. Footsteps thudded on the shifting sand, and the warm air pressed down, contrasted by the occasional chill shadow cast by a towering dune. Hercule Poirot moved among the players like a director tightening the rehearsal. He began to pressure the suspects, testing their alibis as if they were flawed scripts being read aloud for the first time. Lady Eleanor Harrington sat in the shade of a large awning, her silk shawl draped elegantly over her shoulders. Poirot asked her again about the exact sequence of events the night Sir Reginald died. Her voice remained soft, measured, but the pauses grew longer. She spoke of retiring early with a headache, of hearing nothing unusual. Yet when pressed about the bottle of poison, known to have been in her husband's possession, she hesitated. Her fingers tightened on the lace edge of her shawl. The performance strained. "Observe, mon ami, this one's lines are beginning to falter. The script is too well learned, too polished. Truth does not require such careful delivery." Dr. Elias Thorne was next. He stood beside his medical bag, insisting once more that the toxin had been self-administered. Poirot gently pointed out that the vial's cap had been wiped clean. Odd for a man in despair. Thorne's explanation came quickly. Perhaps Sir Reginald had wiped it himself in a final act of tidiness. But his eyes flicked to the side, and he reached for his hip flask too swiftly. The mask of calm professionalism cracked just enough for Poirot to notice. "The mask slips. Did you see how his hand shook when he set the flask down again?" Colonel Marcus Black grew louder with every question. He barked that the whole affair was suicide, that no further inquiry was needed. Poirot asked about the argument he had had with Sir Reginald over a disputed artifact 2 days earlier. The Colonel's face reddened, his voice rose. He claimed he had gone to bed early, heard nothing. Yet a servant had seen him near the victim's tent after midnight. The military precision of his alibi began to crumble under scrutiny. Too perfect, mon ami, too rehearsed. The truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth until the pressure builds. Miss Sophia Lang was questioned under the awning's shade. She repeated her story of fetching water and sorting papers late into the night. Poirot produced the torn corner of paper found near the body, part of a letter in Sir Reginald's hand. Lang paled, but recovered quickly. She said it must have been blown by the wind. Her soft kid gloves twisted in her lap. The calm mask of the devoted secretary began to show strain. Ask yourself, why does she avoid looking directly at the paper? Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid maintained his gracious poise. He spoke of desert hospitality, of how Sir Reginald had been a valued guest. Poirot asked about the late-night meeting the victim had requested. The Sheikh's smile remained, but his cigar burned down faster than usual, and when pressed about business dealings, debts Sir Reginald had called in, the Sheikh's hand paused mid-gesture, a small crack in the performance of calm authority. Mrs. Vivian Croft laughed lightly when questioned, offering more champagne as if it were a social gathering. She claimed her headache had kept her in her tent all night. Yet a camel driver had seen her silhouette near the main tent around 1 o'clock. Her tinkling laugh rang hollow now, her velvet composure fraying at the edges. "Bravo, madam, but the performance grows less convincing by the hour." Poirot arranged the cast around a low table for a brief rest. Strong continental coffee was poured into smooth crystal cups. Its bitter taste lingered on tongues already dry from heat and tension. The fire crackled in a small brazier, sending warmth against the chill that crept in as the sun shifted. Crisp linen napkins were passed, their texture grounding the rising unease. The investigation deepened. Poirot revealed a small detail. The poison vial had been placed on a low table where only someone with intimate knowledge of the tent's layout could have reached it without disturbing anything else. Lady Harrington's eyes widened briefly. Then she looked away. Colonel Black blustered, insisting it proved nothing. Dr. Thorne cleared his throat too loudly. "Consider the psychology, mon ami. When a player knows the script is failing, how do they react? Do they double down on the role, or do they begin to break?" Rain threatened again, a few drops pattering on the canvas overhead like hesitant applause. Silk rustled as suspects shifted uncomfortably, as the grandfather clock, still packed on a camel, chimed faintly from its crate, a reminder that time was running out for performances. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. The lines had begun to falter. The script was failing. Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. The caravan halted at a narrow wadi where the dunes pressed close, turning the desert into a stifling, enclosed stage. The midday sun beat down mercilessly, the heat rising in waves that blurred the horizon. Inside the main tent, hastily re-erected for shade, the air was thick with the scent of expensive Chanel perfume, clashing against the lingering wood smoke from a small brazier. Polished mahogany folding tables gleamed dully, as silk cushions sagged under the weight of exhaustion. The hot air pressed against skin, while the occasional chill from a shadowed corner reminded everyone of the desert's cruelty. Smooth crystal glasses held the last of the icy champagne, now warming too quickly, and the faint taste of dry wine lingered bitterly on every tongue. Hercule Poirot had decided the moment had come. He summoned the entire cast to the tent's center, arranging them in a rough circle beneath the billowing silk roof. This would be no gentle interview. This was confrontation, the moment when masks could no longer be held in place. Colonel Marcus Black stood with arms crossed, his face flushed, already performing outrage before a single word was spoken. Dr. Elias Thorne shifted uncomfortably, his rough tweed jacket too heavy in the heat. Lady Eleanor Harrington sat very straight, her silk shawl clutched tightly. Miss Sophia Lang remained at the edge, her soft kid gloves folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the ground. Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid leaned against a mahogany post, cigar unlit, watching silently. Mrs. Vivian Croft tried to smile, but the expression looked painted on. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how the Colonel's chest rises too quickly. This actor is overplaying anger. The real emotion is fear." Poirot began quietly, his voice carrying easily in the tense silence. "Mes amis, we have reached the point where performances must end. Let us speak plainly." He turned first to Miss Lang. With a small, deliberate gesture, he produced the packet of letters, love letters in Sir Reginald's hand addressed to her, found hidden inside her travel desk, and the handwriting was unmistakable. The words passionate, desperate, rejected. Miss Lang's face drained of colour. Her hands began to tremble, uncontrolled, unscripted. For the first time, the mask of calm devotion cracked wide open. She tried to speak, but only a small, broken sound escaped. Then the tears came, real tears, hot and sudden, streaking down her cheeks without restraint. The fire crackled in the brazier, sending a brief warmth against the chill that had settled over the group. Rain, impossible again, began to patter lightly on the canvas, a soft drumbeat underscoring the moment. Poirot applied his director method to Miss Sophia Lang. The performance. She has played the quiet, loyal secretary so perfectly. Eyes downcast, voice gentle, hands folded, every gesture modest and controlled. With a tell, but now, observe, the tremble is not rehearsed. The breath catches. The tears arrive without warning. This is no longer acting. The psychology. I am reminded of the affair in Death on the Nile. There, a woman performed friendship and calm devotion while jealousy burned beneath. She rehearsed indifference so carefully. Smiles, light conversation, averted glances. Yet the body betrayed her. Flushed cheeks when the beloved appeared. Rigid posture when another received affection. Small hesitations that grew into violent acts. Psychology teaches us that love twisted into obsession cannot be fully masked. It leaks, first in glances, then in gestures, finally in collapse. Genuine emotion disrupts every script. The little grey cells see clearly. When the heart is truly involved, control vanishes. The truth, therefore, Miss Lang, your love for Sir Reginald was no gentle affection. It was obsession. When he refused you, when he chose another path, your mask shattered and hate took its place. You see it now, non? The facade has fallen. Miss Lang's shoulders shook. She did not deny it. Instead she whispered, he promised we would leave together." The words dissolved into sobs. The tent grew very still. Colonel Black exploded. "This is absurd! You're tormenting an innocent woman." But his voice cracked on the last word. Poirot turned to him, calm and unhurried. "Colonel, your outrage is noted, but innocent men do not hide artifacts stolen from Sir Reginald's collection in their own saddlebags." Black's face purpled. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Dr. Thorne stepped forward, trying to defend Lang. "She would never." But Poirot raised a small hand. "Doctor, your gallantry is touching. Yet gallantry performed so late usually hides complicity. You knew of the poison. You supplied it. Perhaps not intending murder, but you did not stop it." Thorne sank back silent. Lady Harrington watched everything with wide eyes. For the first time, her performance of distant grief faltered. Relief flickered across her features, relief that the attention had shifted. Mrs. Croft laughed once, nervously, then stopped when no one joined her. The rain grew heavier, drumming on the canvas like impatient applause. The scent of wet sand drifted in, mixing with the perfume and smoke. Crisp linen napkins were pressed to damp foreheads. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. Greed has performed as grief. Loyalty has performed as outrage. Helpfulness has performed as innocence. But beneath every mask lies the true face. And today, the masks have fallen. Miss Lang looked up at last, eyes red, voice raw. "I didn't mean, I only wanted him to see me." The confession hung in the air, fragile and final. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain. Night had fallen over the caravan once more. The desert sky a vast black curtain studded with stars. The camp had been pitched hastily in a sheltered hollow between dunes. And the silk tents rose again like familiar stage sets. A small fire crackled in the centre brazier, sending wood smoke curling upward to mingle with the faint scent of fresh lilies that someone had stubbornly carried from the oasis. Furniture wax still clung to the polished mahogany travel chests, as the rich aroma of Cuban cigar smoke drifted from the Sheikh's direction. Soft kid gloves lay discarded on a table, and the smooth crystal of water glasses caught the firelight. The chill night air pressed against the warm interior of the main tent, where the cast now sat in uneasy silence. Hercule Poirot moved quietly among them, pulling back curtains on the hidden relationships that had remained unseen until now. He began with Lady Eleanor Harrington. A single letter, discovered tucked inside her jewel case, revealed an affair with Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid that had lasted nearly 2 years. The words were intimate, impatient. Sir Reginald had known. He had threatened to expose the Sheikh's financial dealings unless the relationship ended. Lady Harrington's mask of distant grief had hidden relief. Now relief hid shame. Poirot turned to the Sheikh. Another document found among Sir Reginald's papers showed a large unpaid debt, money borrowed to keep a failing business afloat. Sir Reginald had called in the loan the day before he died. The Sheikh's gracious hospitality had masked deep resentment. Observe, mon ami, this is the backstage of the drama. The elegant performances on stage hide private wounds. Dr. Elias Thorne's secret emerged next. A small ledger slipped inside his medical bag recorded gambling debts owed to Sir Reginald, debts that had grown dangerously large. Thorne had supplied the poison under the guise of pain relief, perhaps hoping it would never be used. But when the opportunity arose, he had not stopped it. Loyalty had performed as friendship. Beneath it lay fear and desperation. Colonel Marcus Black's turn came swiftly, ere stolen artifact, a small gold figurine from Sir Reginald's private collection, had been found sewn into the lining of Black's saddlebag. The two men had argued violently over ownership. Black sparked outrage and military bluster had masked greed. He had not killed, but he had helped obscure the truth. Mrs. Vivian Croft's curtain was pulled back last. Letters hidden in her vanity case showed she had been smuggling small antiquities for profit, using Sir Reginald's caravan connections. He had discovered her scheme and threatened to inform the authorities. Her tinkling laughter and society indifference had covered ambition and fear of ruin. Miss Sophia Lang sat quietly, the love letters already exposed. Her obsession had not been secret from everyone. Sir Reginald had written one final note, never sent, ending the affair. That note had driven her to act. Poirot arranged the cast symmetrically around the fire. Strong continental coffee steamed in smooth crystal cups, its bitter taste sharp against the sweetness of dry champagne that no one now touched. The grandfather clock, unpacked for the night, chimed once, low and solemn. Watch this performance carefully. Truth emerges from shadows when the spotlight is turned behind the curtain. Poirot spoke softly, letting the revelations settle. Behind every elegant gesture, every polite smile, lies motive. Love twisted into hate, loyalty twisted into betrayal, hospitality twisted into vengeance, greed wearing the mask of justice. The Sheikh exhaled cigar smoke slowly, eyes fixed on the flames. Lady Harrington's shoulders sagged. The performance of composure could no longer be sustained, and Colonel Black stared at his boots. Dr. Thorne rubbed his hands together as if cold. Mrs. Croft's fingers trembled on her glass. Miss Lang wept silently, real tears, no longer rehearsed. Rain began again, soft at first, then steady, drumming on the canvas like a slow, inevitable curtain call. The scent of wet sand drifted in, mingling with perfume, smoke, and wax. Reflection. Behind the curtain of this desert theatre, we see why humans so desperately guard their secrets. Motives are not simple. They are tangled threads of fear, pride, desire, and shame. We wear masks because society demands them, because to show the true face is to risk judgment, rejection, loss. In the case of the ABC murders, the killer hid behind an elaborate pattern of staged crimes, performing randomness to conceal a deeply personal grudge. He rehearsed detachment, or planned every detail, yet psychology revealed the flaw: overconfidence. The more elaborate the performance, the heavier the mask becomes. Eventually it slips, not from carelessness, but from exhaustion. Guilt is a poor actor. It cannot sustain the role forever. Universally, every secret carries a motive, and every motive seeks expression. Truth does not need rehearsal. Truth waits patiently behind the curtain until the curtain is drawn aside. To you who watches with Poirot, never trust the surface performance. Look always for what is hidden and why it is hidden. The fire popped, sending sparks upward. Silk rustled as someone shifted. The cold crystal of a forgotten champagne flute sweated in the warm air. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes gleaming in the firelight. Behind every curtain, a secret. Behind every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The caravan had reached the last great oasis before the long journey's end. The tents were pitched in a wide circle around a palm-shaded pool, their silk walls glowing softly in the firelight like the final curtain of a grand theatre. The air was thick with the scent of Cuban cigars, hothouse roses still stubbornly fresh in crystal vases, and the warm, rich aroma of strong continental coffee poured into smooth crystal cups. A small brazier crackled in the centre, its warmth battling the chill desert night that pressed against the velvet-lined entrance flaps. Crisp linen napkins lay folded on polished mahogany tables. The faint tinkling of palm fronds overhead sounded like a crystal chandelier stirred by wind. Hercule Poirot had summoned every member of the cast to the main tent, and they stood or sat in a tense semicircle. Lady Eleanor Harrington, Dr. Elias Thorne, Colonel Marcus Black, Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid, Mrs. Vivian Croft, and Miss Sophia Lang. No one spoke. The grandfather clock, unpacked for this final performance, chimed once, low and solemn. Poirot stepped forward, small hands clasped behind his back, green eyes gleaming under the lamplight. He spoke as a director addressing his company on opening night. Mesdames et messieurs, you have each performed for Hercule Poirot. Some truthfully, some not. The time has come to review the performances. He turned first to Lady Harrington. Lady Harrington, you played the grieving widow with such elegance. Tears on cue, sighs perfectly timed, posture always correct, but the grief was costume. The handkerchief remained dry, the mascara never ran. You knew of your husband's death before it was discovered, because you no longer feared exposure of your affair with the sheikh. The inheritance was secure. Relief performed as sorrow. Lady Harrington's shoulders sagged. She looked down at her silk lap, silent. Poirot moved to Dr. Thorne. Doctor, you performed the loyal friend, the concerned physician. Yet loyalty does not lie about the origin of poison. You supplied it, under the pretext of pain relief, knowing Sir Reginald's despair. Your gambling debts made you vulnerable. You did not kill, but you did not prevent. Your steady hands betrayed rehearsal, not innocence. Thorn exhaled sharply, face pale, eyes fixed on the fire. "Colonel Black," Poirot continued, "you played the outraged rival, the man of honor. But honor does not hide stolen artifacts in saddlebags. Your greed for the gold figurine performed as justice. You argued with Sir Reginald the night before his death, and you helped obscure the truth afterward." The colonel's jaw worked, but no words came. "Sheikh al-Rashid, you gave the performance of the gracious host. Sandalwood cologne, calm words, desert hospitality, magnifique. But hosts do not poison guests over unpaid debts. Sir Reginald called in your loan. You knew the poison was in the tent. You looked away when it was used." The sheikh slowly set his cigar aside. His face was unreadable, but his fingers trembled once. "Mrs. Vivian Croft," Poirot said gently, "you played the society butterfly. Laughter tinkling, champagne always in hand, indifference perfected. Yet indifference does not forge documents to hide smuggling profits. Sir Reginald discovered your scheme. You performed helpfulness to stay close and to silence him." Mrs. Croft's glass slipped from her fingers. It shattered softly on the carpet. "And so we come to our leading performer." Poirot turned to Miss Sophia Lang. "Miss Lang, you gave the most convincing performance of all. The quiet, devoted secretary. The innocent observer. The heartbroken admirer who only wished to serve. You wept beautifully when the letters were revealed. You trembled, once unscripted. That tremble was the mask slipping. Obsession performed as loyalty. Love twisted into hate. When Sir Reginald ended the affair, when he wrote that final, unsent note dismissing you, the role became unbearable. You placed the poison where you knew he would take it, late at night, alone, trusting you. You stayed close afterward to watch, to mourn, to perform grief. But the little grey cells noticed genuine heartbreak disrupts every line. You could not rehearse the tremble. That was truth breaking through." Miss Lang looked up. Tears streamed freely now. She whispered, "I loved him. I only wanted him to Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth takes her bow." Silence gripped the tent. Rain began again. Soft, steady, pattering on silk like fading applause. The fire crackled once, twice. No one moved. Poirot applied his director method one final time to the murderer. The performance, demure, helpful, tears on cue, voice soft, eyes downcast, every gesture controlled, every line delivered with heartbreaking sincerity. The tell, the tremble, small, unscripted, when the letters were produced, the breath that caught, and the moment emotion escaped rehearsal. The psychology. In the case of Evil Under the Sun, a woman performed calm friendship while jealousy consumed her. She rehearsed smiles, practiced indifference, yet the body betrayed her. Rigid shoulders when the beloved appeared with another, a hand that clenched too tightly. Obsession demands control, rejection shatters it. Genuine feeling cannot be contained forever. The little grey cells know, when the heart is truly broken, the actor forgets the script. The truth. Miss Lang poisoned Sir Reginald because rejected love turned to hate. The mask has fallen. You see it now, non? The cast stared, some in horror, some in relief, some in shame. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The desert morning arrived pale and quiet, with the first light filtering through the palm fronds like soft footlights after the final scene. The grand oasis, once the stage of drama and revelation, now felt strangely empty. The silk tents stood half dismantled, their golden threads catching the early sun, as servants rolled them carefully. The air carried the fading scent of Cuban cigars and wilting hothouse roses, now mixed with the clean smell of wet sand from the night's rain. Wood smoke lingered from the last embers of the brazier. Strong continental coffee steamed in the few remaining smooth crystal cups. The grandfather clock had already been packed away, its chimes silenced for the journey home. Justice had begun its slow, methodical work. Miss Sophia Lang stood at the edge of the camp, wrists bound with soft cord, her soft kid gloves long discarded. Her face was pale, yet streaked with the remnants of last night's real tears. No performance remained. The mask of quiet devotion had shattered completely. What stood in its place was a woman stripped bare, exhausted, broken, yet strangely calm. When the local authorities arrived on camelback, she did not resist. She only looked once toward Poirot, a small nod of acknowledgement, as though thanking him for ending the exhausting role she could no longer play. Lady Eleanor Harrington watched from beneath the awning of her half-packed tent. Her silk shawl hung loosely now. The practiced posture of grief had vanished. Relief was visible in the softening of her mouth, the loosening of her shoulders. She would inherit the estate cleanly. The affair with the sheikh would remain private, buried beneath the desert sand, along with the other secrets. As she poured herself a final glass of dry champagne, sipped once, then set it aside. The performance was over. She no longer needed to act the grieving widow. Dr. Elias Thorne sat on a folded camp chair, head in his hands. His rough tweed jacket was creased, his medical bag already searched and sealed. He had confessed his part, not the murder itself, but the supplying of the poison, the turning of a blind eye. Guilt had finally manifested physically. Slumped shoulders, trembling fingers, a voice that cracked on every sentence. He would face inquiry, perhaps lose his license, but the confession had lifted a weight. For the first time in weeks, he breathed without the strain of rehearsal. Colonel Marcus Black blustered still, though the volume had dropped. He barked at the officers that he was a man of honour, that the artifact had been a misunderstanding. Yet the gold figurine now rested in an evidence bag, and his military bluster rang hollow. The mask of outraged loyalty had peeled away, revealing greed and petty theft beneath. He would face charges, minor compared to murder, but enough to end his desert expeditions forever. Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid stood apart, robes impeccable, cigar unlit between his fingers. He offered no defense, only a quiet apology to the group. His role as gracious host had been genuine in part, but resentment over the unpaid debt had poisoned it. He would repay what was owed, now that the creditor was gone, and perhaps, in time, rebuild his honour. His eyes met Poirot's once. A small bow, no words were needed. Mrs. Vivian Croft wept openly. Genuine tears, not the tinkling laughter of before. Her smuggling scheme had been exposed, the forged documents confiscated. Yet the confession had come with relief. The weight of pretending indifference, of playing the carefree society woman while fear gnawed inside, had finally lifted. She clutched a linen napkin, twisting it between her fingers, and whispered to no one in particular, "I never wanted this." Poirot moved among them quietly, observing the transformations. The cast was no longer performing. Masks lay discarded. Only human faces remained, flawed, tired, relieved, ashamed. The fire had burned down to embers, its warmth fading against the rising sun. Crisp linen napkins were folded one last time. Smooth crystal glasses were wrapped in cloth, the scent of expensive perfume, Chanel Worth faded into the dry desert air as the authorities took statements beneath the palms. No one shouted, no one ran. The drama had ended, only procedure remained. Poirot stood a little apart, touching his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. His green eyes moved from face to face. The theatre had emptied. The players had given their final bows, not to applause, but to justice. Rain pattered once more, soft, almost apologetic, on the remaining canvas. The chill of early morning clung to the sand. Somewhere in the distance, a camel bell tolled, slow and mournful, like the last note of a piano left alone on stage. No applause for this performance, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show. The caravan had finally dispersed. The great desert theatre, once alive with silk walls, firelight and whispered performances, now lay almost empty beneath a vast pale sky, and the last tents were folded and strapped to camels. The polished mahogany tables, velvet cushions, and crystal vases had been packed away into wooden crates. The lingering scent of Cuban cigars and expensive perfume, Chanel and Worth, faded into the clean, dry smell of sand and sun-warmed stone. Only the memory of wood smoke clung faintly to clothing, and the soft crunch of footsteps on the dunes replaced the earlier tinkling of crystal and rustling silk. The morning air carried a crisp chill that would soon surrender to the rising heat. The players had left the stage. What remained was resolution, quiet, unglamorous, and final. Lady Eleanor Harrington departed first, travelling north toward Cairo in a private car. The inheritance was hers without contest. Sir Reginald's will had been clear and unchallenged, as she no longer needed to perform grief or composure. In Cairo, she would resume her place in society, elegant, wealthy, and now free of secrets. The affair with the sheikh remained unspoken. The desert had swallowed it along with so much else. She carried herself differently now. No rehearsed sighs, no carefully dabbed eyes. The mask of the grieving widow had been set aside, perhaps forever. Dr. Elias Thorne chose a humbler path. His medical license hung in the balance, but he had confessed fully, his part in supplying the poison, his silence afterward. Rather than fight, he accepted suspension and returned to a small clinic in Alexandria. There, he began treating the poor for almost nothing, his hands steadier now that guilt no longer needed to be controlled. The rough tweed jacket was replaced by a plain cotton coat, with the performance of calm authority gave way to something quieter, more human. Redemption, Poirot reflected, often arrives without fanfare. Colonel Marcus Black faced a military tribunal in Jerusalem. The stolen artifact, a small gold figurine, was returned to its rightful collection, and his smuggling connections unravelled quickly. His barked commands and military bluster no longer carried weight. Stripped of rank and reputation, he retreated to a modest house in England, where he lived quietly, no longer playing the role of the outraged man of honour. The desert had taught him that some masks once removed cannot be worn again. Sheikh Ahmed al-Rashid remained in his own land. The unpaid debt was settled from his own funds. The caravan business continued, but on stricter, more honest terms. Hospitality was no longer a performance to hide resentment. He burned the last of the incriminating letters in a small fire one evening, and watched the ashes rise into the night sky. The role of gracious host became simpler, less layered, more genuine. In time, travellers spoke of his fairness as much as his generosity. Mrs. Vivian Croft returned to London, but not to the glittering society she had once played so well. The smuggling scheme collapsed. The forged documents were destroyed. She sold what remained of her jewels and opened a small antique shop in a quiet street. The tinkling laughter was gone, replaced by a softer voice, a slower pace. She no longer needed to perform indifference. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel regret, relief, even cautious hope. The mask of carefree sophistication had been heavy. Its removal left her lighter. Miss Sophia Lang's fate was the most severe. She was taken into custody and later transferred to a women's prison near Alexandria. There, under the care of doctors, her obsession was treated as illness rather than pure malice. She wrote one letter to Poirot, short, unadorned, without flourish. I rehearsed every moment of my life with him. When the script ended, I could not improvise. Thank you for stopping the performance. Poirot read the letter beside a small fire in his own quarters, then folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. The desert theatre had emptied. The grand stage of sand and stars was once again silent, save for the wind. No more spotlights, no more missed cues, no more rehearsed lines. Only the slow, inevitable return to ordinary life. Poirot applied his director method one last time, and this time to Mrs. Vivian Croft, whose transformation had been subtle but complete. The performance. She had played witty detachment so convincingly, laughter like crystal, champagne always in hand, every gesture light and careless. The tell, when the curtain fell, the laughter stopped. The glass slipped from genuine trembling fingers. The mask cracked under the weight of truth. The psychology. I recall the case of Peril at Endhouse. There, a woman performed carefree charm, while fear and ambition consumed her inside. She rehearsed smiles, practiced indifference, yet the body betrayed her. Tight lips when danger neared. A hand that clenched too hard. When the role could no longer be sustained, relief appeared in the simplest gestures. A long breath, a dropped shoulder. Psychology teaches us that masks worn too long leave marks, but their removal is painful but liberating. The little grey cells see clearly. Truth does not need to perform. The truth, Mrs. Croft aided only indirectly, driven by fear rather than malice. Her future lies in simplicity, not society. You see it now, non? The sun rose higher. The last camel train disappeared over a distant dune. The oasis pool reflected empty sky. No more reflections of masks or spotlights. The theatre emptied, but the lessons lingered. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot sat once again in the quiet comfort of his small Brussels apartment, the familiar Art Deco lines of the room restored to perfect symmetry. A low table held a steaming cup of tisane, its gentle herbal scent rising in delicate curls. The evening light filtered through lace curtains, casting soft patterns across polished mahogany and crisp linen. Outside, the city hummed distantly. Inside, only the faint tick of a small clock and the occasional crackle of a fire disturbed the stillness. Here, far from the desert's vast stage, Poirot could finally review the performance in peace. Letters had arrived over the weeks that followed. Miss Sophia Lang wrote from prison, her words simple and unadorned, no more rehearsed elegance. Lady Harrington had returned to London society, but quieter now, her name appearing in columns without scandal. Dr. Thorne worked humbly in Alexandria, his hands no longer needing to perform steadiness. Colonel Black lived in retirement in the English countryside, his bluster silenced. Sheikh al-Rashid continued his caravan trade, honest and respected. Mrs. Vivian Croft ran a small antique shop, her laughter softer, her eyes clearer. Poirot sipped his tisane, touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, and let the little grey cells turn over the entire drama once more. Why do people perform, rather than simply reveal the truth? Society hands us masks from the cradle, masks of composure, of loyalty, of indifference, of grief. We learn early that certain truths are dangerous, love that becomes obsession, greed that wears the face of justice, fear that dresses as courage. The mask protects. It allows us to move among others without exposure. But every mask is heavy. It requires constant rehearsal. The lines must be perfect, the gestures measured, the eyes controlled. Truth needs no rehearsal, it simply is. That is why, in the end, the performance always falters. Guilt is the poorest actor of all. It cannot improvise. It leaks through small cracks. The tremble of a hand, the averted glance, the breath that catches at the wrong moment. In the desert theatre of Al-Kharid, every player believed their role secure. Yet one by one, the masks slipped. Miss Lang's tremble when the letters were produced, Colonel Black's too swift reach for his flask, Lady Harrington's dry handkerchief, Dr. Thorne's steady hands that should have shaken, Mrs. Croft's laughter that rang false when silence was required, Sheikh al-Rashid's cigar burning too quickly. I recall another case, the mystery of the Blue Train. There, too, performers hid behind glamour and wealth. An heiress played indifference while jealousy consumed her. She rehearsed smiles, practiced calm, arranged every gesture with care. Yet the body rebelled. Eyes too knowing, shoulders too rigid, a hand that clenched when the beloved spoke to another. The psychology was clear. Obsession cannot be fully concealed. It demands control, but control breaks when the script ends. In that train carriage, as in the desert tent, the little grey cells noticed the discrepancy between performance and truth. The actress forgot her lines in the final moment, and truth took the stage. So it was with Miss Lang. She had rehearsed devotion so perfectly that even she believed it for a time. But when Sir Reginald ended the affair, when the role she had written for herself was cancelled, she could not improvise. Hate replaced love, and poison replaced hope. The mask held until the spotlight of confrontation shone too brightly. Then came the tremble, the tears, the collapse. Genuine emotion disrupts every performance. That is the eternal lesson of the little grey cells. Why does truth ultimately triumph over performance? Because performance is effort. It exhausts. It requires mirrors, practice, constant vigilance. Truth requires nothing but existence. The actor grows tired, the mask grows heavy. Sooner or later, the body betrays the mind. A hand shakes, a breath catches, a glance lingers too long. And in that small, unrehearsed instant, the curtain tears. We wear masks because we fear judgment, we fear loss, we fear ourselves, yet the moment the mask falls, there is relief, even in shame, even in punishment. Miss Lang's letter carried no defiance, only exhaustion. Mrs. Croft's new life was simpler because she no longer needed to play. Lady Harrington walked lighter without the weight of pretended grief. Truth may wound, but it does not exhaust. Poirot set the tisane down, arranged the letters symmetrically on the table, order and method always. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. The psychology of revelation is simple. Humans are not built for endless deception. The soul rebels, the body rebels. The little grey cells merely observe what has always been present. And so the theatre of Al-Kharid closed. The sand smoothed over the footprints. The tents vanished. Only the lessons remained, carried in the minds of those who played, and in the memory of Hercule Poirot. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis, Poirot will be watching.